Chris Eubank Jr. will fight fellow Briton Conor Benn in a rematch in London in September. The fight has just been announced, September the 20th. I'm sure if you're into the fight game, you will remember that Eubank Jr. beat Benn by unanimous decision in the first fight. It was unbelievable.
Experience gained, lessons learned. Eubank again, your head smashed in, mate. Come on.
The bitter rivalry reignites in what promises to be one of the sport's most explosive rematches between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. The long-anticipated clash between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. has finally been set in stone, with The Ring magazine breaking the news. The Ring magazine wrote, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn 2 will take place on September 20th in London. The Riyadh season card will be promoted by Sella, Matchroom, and Boxer. Furthermore, Sky Sports confirmed the news that the showdown is officially scheduled, though the final venue remains up in the air.
Chris Eubank Jr. will fight fellow Briton Conor Benn in a rematch in London in September. The fight has just been announced, September the 20th. I'm sure if you're into the fight game, you will remember that Eubank Jr. beat Benn by unanimous decision in the first fight. It was unbelievable. Tottenham Hotspur, they're currently scheduled to play Brighton at the Amex Stadium on that date, September the 20th. But the venue for the fight has yet to be confirmed. What we do know is that Eubank Jr. and young Benn Jr. will do it again one more time.
Their first match delivered 12 rounds of pure fireworks, leaving the entire boxing world stunned and demanding more. The unforgettable battle set the stage for a rivalry that refused to die down. Conor Benn has even posted videos of him beginning his camp for the rematch, and he is hyped up.
All roads lead to September 20th. Sunday work bagged. Attack the week. Let's get it. Come.
Experience gained, lessons learned. Eubank again, your head smashed in, mate. Come on.
Moreover, Conor made it clear where his priorities stand, insisting he'd rather settle the score with Eubank than chase Mario Barrios for the WBC title had he been given the chance to do so. For Benn, this fight is about legacy, unfinished business, and proving a point once and for all.
If you had the option, Barrios championship rematch to get your lick back with Chris, what do you think? What do you think?
Boy, it's a hard one, that is. To avenge my loss.
Or fight Barrios for that, that would be...
What would you lot do?
I'll get my lick back. It's not the smartest.
No,
it might not be the smartest
get my
for my
lick
career.
back. Get my lick back.
It's not the smartest for my career, but that's just...
No, because you got to look here. Barrios, does that sell out stadium?
Yeah, no. Would that make you the money you were making Chris? No.
No, but it does give you some kind of legacy.
No. Miguel Cotto come to me and said, the belt's nothing. The legacy is your kids. Everything you do, you make sure it was for them.
In addition, Conor, remembering the first fight, stated that he had done enough to edge it. While he admitted he could have lived with a close call either way, he slammed the scorecards as outright outrageous, fueling his determination to set the record straight in the rematch.
You think you won the fight?
I do think I nicked the fight. If I wouldn't have moaned it going either way. You know, but the scorecards were outrageous. The scorecards, I'm sitting there going 116, 112.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
Adding to the tension, Oscar De La Hoya weighed in and stated that a rematch will probably end their careers. He pointed towards the brutality that these high-intensity fights carry, which can take years for recovery.
These rematches with these types of intense fights taking place, like Conor and Eubank,
I'm trying to pull him.
a rematch right away will probably end their career. You know, it's that intense. It's that. So look, they have their own careers to deal with. I deal with my fighters. I take care of my fighters. We have to, figure out a plan here. But look, Ryan Garcia is in position to fight anybody at 147, 154. He can even fight Virgil Ortiz if we want. So there's a lot of great fights for a lot of great fighters. It's exciting times for boxing right now.
Sharing a similar sentiment, Eddie Hearn revealed that the fight had already been lined up for Spurs, even though there has not been official confirmation. However, he emphasized how relentless Benn was in his search for revenge, but Hearn also sounded a word of caution, stressing the toll that such battles can take.
His Excellency's already announced September back at Spurs. We have an agreement for that second fight. We've got to have a think about it. Conor's saying, I want revenge, I want this, and it's the biggest fight. I mean, it's massive. But you don't want too many fights like that. And we're giving away advantage up here at 160. He's coming up 2 divisions, and I still stand by. No one's really said pre-fight, oh, is it safe for Conor? Is it, everyone was worried about Eubank, and Eubank was fine. He messed up the weight because he was unprofessional. The hydration was fine for him, and he went 12 hard rounds in there tonight. Don't worry about him. I worry about my man. Yeah, I mean, again, as much as everybody loves to see fights like that, you do have to worry about your fighter keep going through fights like that. And I know that the next fight, Conor will be much better prepared for the next fight, but it's still going to be a war. It's still going to take miles off the clock. And like the aim for Conor Benn is to win world championships. But you can't, one, we've signed for the rematch anyway, but two, the pressure of doing that rematch, like the British public are just like, you have to give us number 2. One of the greatest fights we've ever seen in this country. But for me, the danger was not for Chris Eubank Jr. The danger was for Conor Benn. And that's why we've got to think very carefully about the rematch. Because I don't want to see him in too many fights like that. It's all very well us sitting there and going, wow, what a fight, let's do it again. They're the kind of fights that will shorten your career. And he's got such a long career ahead of him. So, the terms are already agreed for the rematch with to move forward. And it's the same as the first contract in that respect. So I think we got it spot on with the numbers.
Moreover, Hearn stood firmly behind Conor, voicing praise and claiming that Benn can take up world titles below 160, reminding everyone that he made weight for Eubank.
And I know that Conor Benn can win world titles in divisions below 160. He can sell out any arena in the country. He's one of the biggest, not just boxing stars in Britain, sports stars in Britain now, the story, everything. So he's got a long career ahead of him. But I also understand the British public, and I know they're going to want to see number 2.
Building on that, Chris Eubank stated that if the rematch is meant to happen, it will happen, and if not, there is no shortage of big fights waiting in the wings. For Eubank, the options are open, and he is not limiting himself no matter how this story plays out.
Boxing is a very beautiful industry where anything can happen. The possibilities are endless. If the rematch is meant to be, it will be. And if not, guess what? There's plenty of other amazing fights to be had, great things for me to achieve in the sport, so I'm happy either way.
In addition, Chris Algieri weighed in, saying this rematch was inevitable given how thrilling their first clash turned out to be. He further underlined that this fight had intrigued not just the UK, but the global stage.
I think this was obviously going to happen. This was an inevitable rematch between two guys who just obviously because of the history of their parents make for a great matchup, and the fight was good. Also, the fact that this is a really big fight in the UK.
Right.
It's become a much bigger fight to the world because the first one was good.
However, if history repeats itself and Eubank wins, Algieri states that Chris Eubank Jr. could find himself lined up for a massive showdown with none other than Canelo Alvarez. He implied that winning the rematch would send Eubank's stock soaring straight into the sports elite mix.
If things go the way that the first one went, Eubank wins again, which is probably what most people assume is going to happen. He's going to be the favorite of the fight. He's getting Canelo, dude. There's going to be Chris Eubank Jr. fighting Canelo at some point. Canelo's probably going to go over to the UK. He's going to Wembley. He's going to fight him. It's just. I'm telling you right now. Mark my words. Mark the calendar. If Eubank wins again, he's going to be looking for that Canelo fight. He's already talking about it.
Furthermore, Algieri pointed out that a loss wouldn't hurt Benn in the grand scheme of things. He emphasized that if Benn won or lost, he would pocket a hefty payday and likely drop back down to 154 or even 147 if he could still make the cut. Even with a win, Chris does not see Benn sticking around at middleweight.
Benn, from that point of view, if he loses, he's 0-2 against Eubank at 160. Who cares? He made a ton of money. Go back down in weight, either 154 or 147 if you can still make it. 147's, other than Brian Norman being the guy, there's a lot of positions that he can put himself into where he might be able to pick up a title before he has to fight a guy like Brian Norman. So there's options if it goes that way. If Benn wins, I mean, he's not going to stay at middleweight. I don't see him looking for a title at middleweight. Again, he's gonna move back down. I would assume they're going to try and make 47. Don't know if he can. And for Eubank, he loses. maybe trying to go for the rubber match to try and get another payday, or just be like, I don't want to make this weight anymore. I'm done fighting. I don't need to do anymore. I made enough money. So there's a lot of ways it could go, but no, I don't think the guys are necessarily done.
In addition, Gareth A. Davies welcomed the fight being locked in for the 20th, calling it a perfect slot for a blockbuster. He looked back at their first clash as a fight of the year and credited both fighters for delivering fireworks. Davies had Eubank edging that battle clearly on the cards, but tipped his hat to Benn for stepping up and pushing it to the limit. He sees these events causing bigger noise since the involvement of the ring and Turki Al Sheikh backing it. He sees this rematch shaping to be even bigger.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be the week after the 27th, and there was a debate about when it was. 20th is a good date for it, in my view, at the end of the balmy summer that we're having right now. It was a brilliant fight. It's the fight of the year so far. Both men produced on the night. I mean, I had Eubank a clear winner, 7-5 or 8-4 in rounds. As I say, it was a brilliant fight. Benn stepped up and made the fight, even though he's the much smaller man. It's great to see that Ring Magazine and Sheikh Turki, as he's now known, with Dana White now being his principal promoter, involved. It's a big fight. I'm glad they're doing it again. I think I hope it's at your ground.
However, Gareth did not hold back on his thoughts about where this blockbuster should land. He pointed to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, noting they've already hosted 2 or 3 major events there. From his ringside seat just 3 rows back, he described the electric atmosphere, the towering banked stands, and the sheer buzz of broadcasting from such a venue. For him, staging Benn versus Eubank under those lights would be nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they could go to another football ground. I mean, I think, I hate to say the word Arsenal, I'm an Arsenal fan, but that's a possible venue as well. But for me, the fact we've had 2 or 3 events at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the great Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I'm telling you, sitting 3 rows from the ring, doing commentary and broadcasting from there, what it must be like to run around on that pitch and play with those banked, tiered stands. It must be incredible and so stimulating. It's an incredible stadium. I do hope it's back at Spurs. You'll tell me whether the schedule allows it or not. I suppose they're making a decision on that at the moment.
In contrast to the excitement, analyst Ade Oladipo weighed in, stating that the rematch would not carry the same level of intrigue that made the first fight unmissable. He pointed to the layers of drama and backstory that drew in even casual fans. He remarked that recreating this same magic this time will be a tall order.
But it was the perfect storm of events, from the egg slap, from the 2.5-year build-up, from the Chris Eubank Sr. reveal. You're not going to get all that again.
You're not going to get that.
And that reveal and the egg slap and everything else made it just one that even people that I know don't like boxing were like, okay, I'm intrigued, I need to watch.
But won't
that intrigue's gone.
In addition, Frank Warren made it clear he'll tune in when Benn and Eubank run it back, but his stance on the fight has not budged an inch. He brushed off any excitement for Eubank Jr., pointing out the fighter's age at 36, and stressing he's far more focused on pushing his own stable of rising stars instead.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll watch all boxing on there. It is what it is. I'm not going to change my views on the fight at all. I've said enough about the fight, what I think about it. I'm not a big fan of Chris Eubank Jr. He's 36 years of age, and I'll look at what Hamza's doing. I'll look what Denzel Bentley have done. Gone and fought for proper world titles, real world titles, and done them at a young age.
You feel like Chris has wasted perhaps prime years of his career?
I don't think about him at all, to be quite honest. It doesn't concern me. All I'm interested in doing, is making fights for my fighters.
Moreover, Warren threw down an open invitation for both Conor and Chris to step up and test themselves against his own fighters. For Warren, the door is wide open if either man wants to take a shot and prove his worth inside his stables.
As I say, him and Conor anytime can fight my 2 guys. I think the weight thing at the time was a very relevant point. Of course it was. It was a very relevant point. But look, it is what it is, and that's the Board of Control. They're obviously will be scrutinising everything. I'm sure everything will be in order.
Meanwhile, Nigel Benn made his stance clear, stating that he would like to see Benn drop back down in weight once the rematch with Eubank Jr. is settled. For Nigel, he wanted his son to chase glory in the division he truly belongs in.
The rematch is immediately what you want to see.
Yeah, I think, go for the rematch, yeah. No point in going back down to 147, stay at 160, get the rematch, win the rematch, and then drop back down to 147.
Building on that, Robert Garcia shared his take, praising the first fight and hoping the second would not disappoint either. However, he raised concerns, pointing out that if a fighter moves up in weight and settles there for a few bouts, dropping down becomes challenging.
It's not easy at all, especially when you do it a couple times. If they're already planning, and they already have the rematch, which I can't wait. It's gonna be a great fight again. It's gonna be great for the boxing world, not just UK, the world, because we had a great first fight, and I think we'll have a great second fight. But when a fighter already moves up in weight and stays there for a couple of fights, it's going to be very, very hard for him to get down to 147. Maybe 154, but 147, I would probably say we never see him fight at 147 again, because it's not easy, man. It's not easy to build your body with muscle to compete at 160, and then after a couple years, a couple fights, come back down to 147. It's going to be really hard for him. It is different the way they do, and when the fighters are cutting weight, they go through some go through hell, some go through not drinking water for a few days, not eating, this what they do in the UK is a little awkward and a little bit difficult because we lived it.
In contrast, boxing analyst G-Man reflected on the first clash, saying it did exactly what it was meant to do. He stated that the fight kept the story rolling, delivered the action it promised, and turned out to be a genuinely entertaining scrap from start to finish.
First fight was brilliant, really enjoyed it, tremendous scrap. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, cannot emphasize that enough. But I think the fight served its purpose. It had been a fight that had been nearly 2.5 years in the making, really, because it was October 2022 when it all fell through, and it happened in April of 25. So 2.5 years, pretty much actually 2.5 years. So it served its purpose. It was a can that was well and truly kicked down the road. And finally we got to see it, and it delivered. It truly did. It was a fun fight. I enjoyed every minute of it, doing a watch along. The time just went like that. I thoroughly enjoyed it, can't complain.
Meanwhile, Paulie Malignaggi argued that the fight was not of the kind where Eubank could easily coast through. He added that the fight tested the characters of both men and pushed their limits. He added that if Eubank had really been a class above, we would not be running it back the second time.
He had to work his way through the fight. He didn't walk through it, So the complacency is just put yourself back in the discomfort of the first fight. That was a fight where both guys were uncomfortable in various points, and they had to fight through it. So it tested their character, tested their mettle. It wasn't one of those fights where you breeze through it. And then I would worry about the complacency where he was so much better. But then again, if it had been that kind of fight, we wouldn't really be getting a rematch either, right? So, I think. I don't know that complacency is going to be a problem, because I think Eubank, there was enough risk to Eubank in the first fight to where he'll get motivated for the second fight. I agree with the champ, though. I think both guys have a reason to stick around afterwards, Yep.
With the stage now set and rivalry more personal than ever, Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank 2 is shaping up to be a defining moment for British boxing, and possibly the last dance for one of these fierce competitors. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Who are you rooting for? Smash that like button if you can't wait for the fight, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you are up to date with all things boxing, and we will see you in the next video with more exciting updates.